everyone, welcome to a new episode of In Other Words with Danielle and Zara.
So this is a podcast where we're going to be talking about a wide array of different topics, from navigating faith in the modern world to friendship. So in other words, we're going to be talking about all the things.
So today we have a very special episode. We have our first guest ever on the podcast.
Woo-hoo.
We're going to be talking about finance, which as young adults is something we don't know nearly enough about. But I'm going to have Danielle, you can introduce him because you're a little bit closer to him.
Right, so we have my dad, Simon Marais, on the podcast with us. So Simon, will you please tell us about yourself?
Well, I'm Danielle's dad.
What?
And Zara is like a second daughter here in the house.
Aww.
So there's a little bit of bias. But I'm a financial advisor, a certified financial planner I've been with Liberty Life for almost 20 years now. And really I help people to save for the future. I help companies with their pension and provident funds. And we do life insurance and disability cover and things like that as well. We do all the financial things, as you say.
All the things.
All the things.
Awesome. So what we did is we asked on our social media if people had questions. And most of the people that sent in questions were students and almost
young adults.
students. Yes.
Yeah.
So it's tailored towards that, but I think that there'll be something in here for everyone.
For sure.
Okay.
Everyone needs advice
Exactly.
for money.
Okay.
Right. So the first question that we got sent is, what are the rookie mistakes that people make on a student budget specifically? Yeah.
Well, I think most students are lucky to have income, so that
Yeah.
first thing is to get some level of income.
Yeah.
But the biggest rookie mistake, and it's not only a rookie mistake, the biggest mistake anybody makes on any budget is when they spend too much or they spend more than they earn. And that obviously then ends up, if you're a student, running to mom and dad or the bank for taking extra money.
Yeah.
Or if you're working, it means that you're going to be taking a credit card and taking out overdrafts and getting yourself into debt. So biggest mistake is running, too much, your expenses are higher than your income.
Yeah.
And the way one can avert that, not everybody does it. It's a bit of a discipline to learn. That's actually building up a budget first. You write your own budget. So write out the expected expenses you're going to have every month, and you need to try to live within the money that you actually earn.
Yes.
I would say that's the biggest mistake, not just young people, but everybody makes.
Yeah. That makes
And when
sense.
it comes to writing out a budget, you suggest that it's actually on paper or on a screen so that it's a little bit more disciplined.
Now remember, I'm saying this to you that doesn't necessarily mean I always do it.
Ah.
Okay, so very important, but yes.
Do as he says, not as he does.
Exactly. There's some very, very cool software out there at the moment there's one that and this is a harmless endorsement. It's the numbers 22 and then the word 7, 22/7. It actually goes into your bank account and it works out your budget for you. It's a wonderful little app you can use.
Trustworthy, I'm assuming.
22, it's completely trustworthy. However, the act of actually writing out your expenses every month is a very good one, especially if you are new at this.
Yeah.
So I would suggest don't use a computer, don't use all this fancy software which is out there. Perhaps you're a bit more experienced, you can use that. But the act of physically writing it out on a piece of paper is very, very important to, I don't know why, but it helps you to understand your funds better. So write out your budget.
Now I have something to do with all the notebooks I have.
Yeah.
Exactly. And keep it simple.
Okay.
Don't worry about the 3 cents here and the 2 cents there. We'll worry about the cents and they make up for the rands. But don't get stuck on doing your budget. You need a general budget set up, and you want to manage that each month.
Yeah.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Also, and then just before we move on, you mentioned how people start using credit cards, especially as they get older. What is your view on that? Like credit cards, should people have a credit card? Should they not? I'm interested to
Look,
to
the
know.
credit cards are just another way of payment. These days, you've got debit cards, you've got credit cards, you've got SnapScan. They're all just mechanisms that take money out of your bank account.
Yeah.
And the main thing is to try to avoid running into too much debt.
Yeah.
So historically, the thing about credit cards is that you can spend your money and then you've only got to pay for it next month. So you've got almost 45 days of interest-free spending,
Yeah.
which is the hook they catch you. No, it's interest free. And then you kind of forget about paying it off in 45 days.
Yeah.
And before you know it, you got 3 or 4 months debt built up there.
Rough.
Whereas with a debit card, it only runs on what's in your bank account.
Yeah. So you're spending money you actually have.
Precisely. That's the theory. But remember, as life gets more complicated, you can also get these lovely things called overdrafts. And then it's just the same as a credit card. So the main thing, it goes back to my rule number 1, is try to live within your income and try to do it every month. If you do have a credit card, like I said, the credit card legitimately is interest free in those first 30 days or whatever it is. But if you do have one, then endeavor to pay the full amount of every month, so you actually take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Right now, I think a credit card interest rate is about 18 or 19%. That's what they're going to charge you. 19% of the money you don't pay. And that just runs up very, very fast. Whereas money that you're earning, if it's in the bank, it's maybe 5% or 6%. So you're going to pay a lot of interest.
Okay. Not keen.
No, not keen at all for
Try
that.
to avoid it.
Yeah. Okay, so obviously we can make this as simple as possible, but for every person will be different. Some people are students who haven't started working, they're getting pocket money. Some people are working part-time. I am about to finish my degree and I'm going to have to start working full-time.
Woohoo.
How would you ratio your salary, whatever that salary may be, in terms of investing, saving and spending?
Right. For the first thing I would say is that at your ages now, if you in your early 20s, and I know this is it sometimes it's difficult to think like this, but you want to be getting to a point where you can actually retire properly.
Yeah.
I know that's exactly. That's
I want to
40
retire
years away.
3 years' time.
Exactly.
I'm still so young.
But if you can start now and you can be saving, say, 15% of your gross income every month, and you save it into, I'm not going to get into too many products, but like a retirement annuity or into a unit trust, but you basically put away 15% at least of your salary or your income every month, and you do that for 30 or 40 years, you will be able to retire properly on about 90% of your final income.
Okay.
So it's long term. So that's the first thing is as Stephen Covey always said in 7 Habits, start with the end in mind. So if you know, okay, that's number 1, start saving for long term. Then you want to be looking towards maybe taking a similar amount if you can afford it. Well, you can afford it, it's a percentage, but take another percentage and you want to then start to put that away into you want to build up a reserve fund. So maybe take 10% of your monthly saving, of your monthly earnings, and put it into an account or a unit trust or something like that, which is out of your bank account, so you don't spend it. And you keep that there for rainy days or for holidays or for that overseas trip or for the emergency when your car breaks and mom and dad are tired of bailing you out.
Yeah.
Those kind of things. And then people always say you should try to live. I mean, this is the ideal. I know it's difficult. Try to live between 70 and 75% of your earnings.
Okay.
So, and then the balance you take away for long-term saving, and then for shorter-term saving.
Okay.
As well.
Is your short-term saving, does that include your investments in a sense?
Yes. Well, look, I mean, technically, any saving is an investment.
True.
Okay.
This is
You're just
true.
using different types of of savings vehicles.
Okay.
But yes, so investments, as most people would understand it, would be things that you put away for 3 or 4 or 5 years,
Okay.
and you take the money out and you're going to spend it or you're going to reinvest it.
Cool. Okay, so we're looking at 15%, 15%, 70%.
75%.
And remember, the nice thing about long-term saving on the retirement side is that once you work, and there's this lovely thing called tax. It's a 3-letter word, which is worse than all the 4-letter words. Because you're saving for retirement, the government allows you to claim your retirement savings as a tax deduction.
Okay.
So you can deduct up to 27.5% of your gross income. And so you're basically getting some of your tax money back if you save for the long term. So it makes sense to do that.
Okay.
Cool. So I think you just want to talk a bit about spending. So one of the questions that we got was like how do you know when it's right to buy a house? And we can apply that to like a car as well, like any of those big like those bigger investment things. And also, like, in terms of the South African economy, do you think that's a good idea to invest in right now?
All right, let's talk about the properties and things like that.
Yeah.
Look, it would be my philosophy is if you can afford it, try and get into a property to live in or to as an investment as soon as possible,
Yeah.
because it never gets cheaper. And yes, over the long term, the property market does perform worse than the stock market. That's just investment.
Yes.
That's just how it works. But it's very important that you have your own place to live in one day.
Yes.
You don't want to always be paying rent. Remember, if you're paying rent and you're paying 5,000 Rand a month rent today or this year, next year it's going to be 5,500 because they're going to add a 10% escalation.
Yeah.
So in 7 or 9, in about 10 years time, you're going to be paying 11 or 12,000 Rand a month
Yeah.
on the same property.
And the person who's bought the property is still paying 5,000 every
Precisely.
month.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Whereas if you can buy your property, you are, ignore interest rates because interest rates go up and down. But if you are buying your property and you're paying a bond today of 10,000 Rand a month, in 10 years or 15 years time, you are still paying 10,000 Rand a month.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're renting that same property in 15 years time, it's going to cost the tenant 30,000 Rand.
It's crazy.
So yes, you've got to pay maintenance. But for me, and perhaps I'm a little bit conservative, but I think it's important that you have your own property. You don't want to be stuck with a tenant. Also, the property does grow. It grows in value. So when you sell one day, you can take the profit that you earn and put it into your next property.
Okay.
And things like that. So I would certainly recommend, if you're able to, get into property as soon as you can.
Okay.
Just with regards to property, sorry.
Yeah.
Would you say buy a property like regardless, like as soon as possible and rent it out, but not with the intent of moving in there one day, but just as an investment? Or do you think it's always best to buy property that you eventually plan on residing in?
Or you can do both.
Look, I think you depending on your financial abilities.
Yeah.
I think it's important to have a place you can live in. If you're able to have free accommodation and then you rent out the property that you buy, that's wonderful, because then it's, so if you're, for instance, staying at home and you can manage to buy a property and rent it out, that's great. I wouldn't recommend that you only buy property, because it's probably your property investment should just be part of your overall portfolio.
Yeah.
Have some property, some shares. People are buying Bitcoin these days. People are buying gold. Have a diversified. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. I think that's important.
Okay.
Property is what we would call a conservative investment.
Okay.
So, and it's also what technically is called an illiquid investment. So if you've got cash if you've got shares on the JSE and you want to get out some money, you can go onto your app and you can sell your shares, and within a few days the money's back in your account.
Yeah.
If I've got a house and I want to get some money, I've got to sell the jolly thing first. And that can take ages. And then it's transfer and blah, blah, blah. So
makes sense.
you got to think, you've always got to be careful of the time horizons on your investments as well.
Okay. And then just along with that, when it comes to having medical aid or tithing and like those things, how do you fit them into a budget? Like, let's say you're renting as well, or you're looking to buy a house. Like, how do you fit those all together?
Yeah. Look, I would say things like tithing should come in that first 30% that we spoke about earlier.
Yes.
So maybe 10-15% into savings, 10% or 15%, whatever you want to give to your church or to your organizations. And 10 to 15%. Okay, now we're moving to 45%.
Yeah, I'm running out of. I only have 100%.
Okay, let's just you can look at your numbers, but keep to around say 30% that is going for saving, either saving towards long term, medium term, or charitable donations.
Okay.
Things like rental is going to have to come out of the remaining amount.
Yeah.
Things like your bond payment, if you've got a bond, will have to come out of the remaining amount.
Yeah.
Things like medical aid, etc., will have to come out of the remaining amount. So shop around. So when you've got to make it all come out of what remains.
Okay.
And things like medical aid are really challenging in this country at the moment, because
So that was going to be my question: is what is your suggestion for a student who now for example, me, I'm coming off my mom's medical aid because I'm a big girl now.
Wow.
And medical aid is just like too expensive for me to afford like what my mom is now getting, you know.
Yeah.
And my thing is always I don't want to end up in like a state hospital.
No.
And I have medication that needs to be covered. So
look, there are one can have a whole program just speaking about medical aids. It's tricky, but to simplify it, one, you can get a very basic what they call a hospital plan, which is it's certainly not cheap, but it's going to be cheaper than probably the full medical aid that you're on through your mom's work.
Yeah.
So, and basically what that means that if you have anything big, so you have an accident or there's a major sickness, you're going to go to a private hospital because it pays all private hospitals at private rates. Yes, the nice to have the day-to-day going to the GPs and getting your glasses and getting things done to your teeth. So both Danielle and Zara have got to have dentist things in the next few days. Such fun.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
Luckily, we're still on our parents' medical aid.
Exactly. But so when you're on the full medical aid, all of those things are covered. When you downgrade to or when you start off with a hospital plan, you are going to have to be a little bit more selective about what procedures get done.
Yes.
And, you can't just you can just go to the doctor whenever you want, but then you're going to have to pay out of pocket.
Yeah. Okay, makes sense.
But get the big stuff covered.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask, because I heard a thing the other day, someone told me, like, some of the advice that they've gotten is that generally, like, as a single person who's relatively healthy, you can kind of not get medical aid, but then once you start having a family, then you should get medical aid. Like, what do you see about that? Do you think if someone's working, they're single, they're relatively healthy, should they already start with a medical aid? Or
look, that is the old philosophy.
Yeah.
Because you think when you're not in the firing zone of
age,
diseases and or the lifestyle diseases and whatever, but medical aids and all insurance type policies these days, they have this thing called, especially medical aids, called anti-selection. So these in South Africa, for instance, if you don't go into medical aid and you only go on, say, when you're 35 or 40, they are allowed to levy what's called a late joiner penalty on you.
What?
So it's to
That's
protect
so pathetic.
it's to protect the oldies.
Wow.
So they're saying, because otherwise what happens, only the sick people ever got medical aid, and then you would never be able to afford it.
Yeah.
Because if medical aids were only there for people who are about to have a heart attack or going to hospital next week, it would be impossible to afford it.
Sense.
Medical aids and the whole theory of insurance, and basically medical aid is a type of insurance. It just means that as many people as possible need to be putting money into what they call the pool, and then the expenses get paid from the pool to simplify it. So if all the healthy people say, well, I'm not swimming in that pool because it's too expensive, then everybody else who remains starts paying more.
Okay.
So I often see people who've done that in their life and they think, great, now I'm 50, I'm going to join a medical aid. And I've just said to them, yeah, that's great. It would have cost you 4,000, but because you're only joining now, it's going to cost you 9,000.
Yeah.
So it becomes quite significant.
Yeah.
And on top of that, they can then also elect to exclude you from certain things. So let's just say you now are 45 or 50 and you've got a heart condition or you've got diabetes. They can say to you, okay, for the first 12 months, we're going to give you no cover on those issues. So if you have a heart attack in the first 12 months, even though you're on top of the range medical aid, you're going to have no cover for those conditions. And they can even say to you, for the first 3 months, you're going to pay, but you're going to get nothing at all. Not even, you're going to get no cover whatever. So just be very, very careful about delaying the start of medical aids.
Okay. Good to know.
and for those who have been on their parents' medical aids, that's very good because that counts towards your years of service on the medical aid.
Wow.
So you can almost...
By doing nothing.
Because the late joiner penalties only apply after a certain number of years that you haven't been on.
Okay.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Danielle, you asked about investing in South Africa.
Oh, yes. Of course.
Let's chat about investing.
And look, historically, the South African investment arena has been fantastic. I mean, the JSE up until the last few years has been one of the top performing stock markets in the entire world over the last 80 years. It's been phenomenal.
Wow. Even with the rand being...
Yes.
Okay.
Because what happens because the rand, the rand is one measure of return, but what businesses do is a completely different thing.
Okay.
However, over the last 8 or 9 years, with the mismanagement that we all know about and we don't really want to dwell on too long, it's made South Africa less attractive from an investment point of view, because people noticed the government wasn't as reliable. They noticed that there was a lot of corruption going on.
A bit of
And
corruption.
so a lot of the money has walked out of the country. It's left the building.
Just going.
It's just going. And it is my opinion that the government is well and truly on top of fixing this, but it is a tricky time right now.
Yeah.
I'm still of the belief that it's going to turn around completely, and I think over the next 2 years we're going to see very, very good returns coming out of the market.
Okay.
But it just goes back to why you need to have a diversified portfolio. 'Cause
Yes.
if all of your money was sitting in the bank in rands, you would be very, very much poorer than you were 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whereas even if you were just in the very, very average unit trust, and the unit trust is just basically shares,
Okay.
you would have at least returns that are keeping a little bit level. You're not shooting the lights out, you're not doing brilliantly, but you're at least getting some return on your money.
Okay.
Okay. So
And
when
then,
it comes to investing,
yeah. When it comes to investing, how do you know who is good to invest with? Like, let's say you even want to buy shares or anything like that. How do you choose who's good to invest with?
and also at what bracket, like, let's just say you have to have this much money before you think it would be wise to start buying shares or whatever.
Look, the beauty of where we are now with technology and that is that because of the computerization and of just about everything in the financial field, the fintech field, as they call it, you can start investing with very, very low amounts. But one must just be careful of trying to, you read about, your friend tells you about this share and you go and buy it tomorrow and then you sell it the next day because you've made 12%, and then one needs to take a long-term strategy on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you are going to buy shares, do your research.
Okay.
It's absolutely, if you're going to, that would be buying shares directly. So getting onto an app that's a stockbroking app or a share buying app, know why you want to buy that particular share. Do your research, do your due diligence. The easier way is to actually buy what's called a unit trust. When you say, okay, I'm going to buy and a unit trust is just a collection of shares, and then you buying the price of all of those shares together.
Okay.
And then because there's another 100,000 or 200,000 people out there who are buying the same thing, you can, but if you put in 500 Rand a month, you are getting the returns of all of those shares together.
Okay.
And then you're able, it's a much more diversified way of doing it. Yes, over the long term, there's no doubt that actually investing in shares directly yourself, you're going to get better returns, but with its risk and return. So you need to put a lot more work and effort into buying and investing in shares directly yourself, or you can take the slightly easier approach and then go and buy a unit trust.
Okay.
So unit trusts are those with certain companies, and then they essentially invest for you.
Yes.
Okay.
So let's take the example of say Coronation or Investec, or Investec's actually called 91 now, or Allen Gray. They are companies that have just employed a whole lot of financial people, and they go and basically buy the shares, and then they package those shares to individuals to buy in a unit trust.
Okay.
And then you could talk to somebody like myself or any financial advisor who could actually link you up with those. I can give you which unit trust to buy, or if you've done your research yourself, these days most of these unit trusts you can buy online yourself as well.
Cool.
Okay.
And then they're catering to, back in the old days, you had to put down 50 or 100,000 Rand to even start. These days, you can start with like 500 Rand.
Okay.
Wow.
In some instances, even 50 Rand a month. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's become a lot more accessible.
Very accessible.
Yeah.
And what role do you play, like, as a financial advisor in this? And like you said, you can ask a financial advisor. Is that a better option, or?
Well, we would like to think it's a better option. But
Everyone, Simon Marais, Liberty.
Click the like below. Where is it? No, look, some people are very, very, they make an effort to learn about these things. And these days, the accessibility to these products is there for everybody.
Okay.
But, if you look at almost most very, very wealthy people have got a financial advisor of some sort. They may not take all their advice, but they will go and get information from
But I'm not wealthy and I have you.
There you go. There you go.
For free.
So I would certainly recommend, especially if you're new to the field, have a chat to a financial advisor.
Okay.
What they do is, I mean, these are the buzzwords. It's called a financial needs analysis, where they look at where you, as a fancy words, yeah. Not really. They look at where you are at the moment in your life, and they look at where you want to be, and they look at your risks. So what happens if you pass away today? Do you have debt you need to settle? Do you have dependents you need to look after? If you become disabled today, you have a car crash, and you can't walk anymore, who's going to pay your bills? If you get sick, have you got a medical aid? Have you got dreaded disease cover? How is your retirement saving? And they look at these issues which most of us don't think about.
Yeah.
And then a financial advisor should be trying to get, you should meet with that person at least, I would say, every year to 18 months, and then you reassess your financial plan, because your financial situation changes all the time.
That's true.
So as you get older, your income goes up. So you were spending 500 Rand a month now, and that was going to be enough to give you a great retirement. But now your income's gone up and your costs, everything's adjusted, so you need to adjust those things as well.
Yeah. Okay, and then you wanted to ask about Bitcoin.
Yeah, so obviously Bitcoin has become quite popular, and I just want to know what your views are on it. Should we be, do you buy Bitcoins?
Is Bitcoin like an internet currency? Is that what it is?
Yeah,
I don't
it
even
is.
know.
Well, Bitcoin is just one of a number of what they call cryptocurrencies.
Yes.
So essentially, right now when you trade, you use money or you use banks. And the beauty of Bitcoin is that it's an electronic transaction that goes and it avoids the middleman completely.
Okay.
So there's no bank charges. It's very, very quick. So when I pay you, it's immediately in your account. Whereas if I'm doing an EFT to you, it takes a day or two.
But is Bitcoin like in rands?
Bitcoin is measured in dollars.
Okay.
But I mean, you just convert it because it's just got a conversion factor on it.
Yeah.
So well, one must remember, Bitcoin is just one of many different cryptocurrencies.
Okay.
And down the track, we spoke, earlier we spoke about the technology and finance. It's the next iteration of where the currencies are going.
Okay.
So the whole idea of having money is now it will change in the future.
Yes.
Banks have to change, and I think what's going to happen, a lot of people are saying don't touch it because it's not real. It is real. It's here to stay. It's here to stay. However, the excitement about it now is based on hype. I think there's a lot of people. Warren Buffett famously said, "Do not ever buy anything that you don't fully understand yourself."
Yes.
Okay. So I must buy nothing. After a few more chats with you.
You must ask your advisor to explain it to you. And they must explain it to you in simple terms. If they cannot explain it to you, don't buy it. Unless you, or find someone else. But I'm very wary of just jumping on the bandwagon because everybody says you must. You're going to double your money. That sounds to me like a pyramid scheme. Now, Bitcoin is not a pyramid scheme, but there are people who are selling it as though it is. And so one must just be very, very careful about it. The underlying product is the way of the future. There's no doubt about it. But the hype at the moment, and it's an unregulated environment at the moment, it is dangerous, and you've got to go in there with your eyes wide open. A lot of people have made a ton of cash. In 2008, though, it lost 95% of its value.
Dang.
Not 2008, 2017, sorry.
Yeah.
It lost 95% of its value in the space of 2 weeks.
Okay.
And we are right today. It's just about at I think $18,000 or $20,000. So it's right up where it was before. It might be different now because it is more widely accepted.
Yeah.
But again, just educate yourself. There's two different things. One is what is a Bitcoin used for, and that is trading, buying things.
Okay.
So and that's here to stay. What everybody's talking about in the marketplace at the moment is the trading of that, making money off it.
Okay.
So I'm buying the Bitcoin because I think it's going to grow by 30% this year. Then I'm going to sell it and make a profit. That's just trading like any other trading. It's trading like shares or trading, whatever you're buying. So just if you're going to invest in Bitcoin, people are so-called investing in it because they're trying to make money out of, they're assuming they buy it now, they can sell it for X% higher in a period of months or days.
Okay.
So that's the assumption there. So it's like any other trading.
Okay.
Cool.
And then we were going to chat about
Some
saving.
Yeah.
We want to travel.
Okay.
How do we...
We
and
want to go to the
other-
south of France.
Ideally. How
Save
do
a lot.
young people work towards saving for an overseas trip? Well, not even overseas, but like a big trip.
Look, I think the first thing is to identify how long you want to be saving for.
Okay.
Because we spoke about Bitcoin now, and we don't know what Bitcoin is going to look like in 5 years' time or 10 years' time, but it's very, very volatile. Any thing like Bitcoin or certain shares, they're highly volatile. That means their prices jump high or they go low.
Yeah.
And it can happen in the space of days or weeks.
Okay.
So if you're going away in 6 months' time, you do not save for it using shares or Bitcoin.
Okay.
Because you don't know which way it's going to be in 6 months' time. If your time horizon is 3 years or 5 years, you can then start to save in some of those kind of things. So you can get some unit trusts which have more exposure to the market. If you understand the other cryptocurrencies, you can maybe add a bit of that into it. As an aside, I was reading something last night or on Saturday night. What they were saying is that Bitcoin Bitcoin's just one, but cryptocurrencies should become one part of your basket of investments.
Okay.
But probably never more than between 1% and 5% of your total investment basket.
Okay.
So buy them, but don't oversubscribe to them.
Okay.
Unless you know a terrible amount of it.
Yeah.
But so it's all about your time horizon of sharing. So if you're looking to go away in 5 years' time, then you can maybe buy some unit trust, and you can save, again, allocate what you can out of your budget.
Okay. And what is the value in just having a savings account and tossing money in there versus actually taking that money and investing?
Again, it comes down to time horizon.
Okay.
So if you are saving in a bank account and you know it's going to be there for 10 years, you are losing your money.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because invariably you will be getting less interest rate than say a unit trust return, or even a 32-day notice account. So if it's in the bank or in a basic savings account, it has its place, make no mistake, and that place is in short to medium term saving.
Okay.
Anything longer than that, you want to move it out where you can get slightly better rates.
Okay. Because I know last time I spoke to you, you said just at least have a savings account so I can differentiate between what is money that I'm not going to use right now.
Remember what we spoke about earlier when we spoke about having a bit of not an emergency account.
Yes.
That's where you'd use it for.
The rainy day.
The rainy day, yeah. Or
Okay.
the unexpected birthday present you forgot. Or, oops, I better go get some money out. And you don't want to borrow money from mom and dad, you can go to that account.
Okay.
And remember, if it's in a unit trust or if it's in a 32-day notice account, it might take you a bit longer to get the money out. But if it's in a savings account, you literally just go onto your app and you transfer the money back to you.
Yeah.
So that's where the savings account has use. It's there for just the occasional unexpected expenses.
Okay.
Cool.
Well, do we have other questions about saving?
Not that I can think of, but do you have anything else to add, like with regards to saving, especially as a young adult, anything like that?
Start ASAP,
Okay.
especially for retirement.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
So weird to think of that.
I know,
Like we have to start saving, and yes, you want to travel and you want to do all these things, but you have to save for like when you retire.
life.
That's crazy.
But the thing about saving long term is that once it goes, it just becomes, you just get used to it.
Okay.
And it's just part of your life then. It's like medical aid. You just got to pay for it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think, I remember a client of mine who left a company in 1972, and he was paid, I think it was 2,000 Rand from his company. And he invested, and he was 40 or whatever it was at that time,
Yeah.
or 30, I don't know. But it was 2,000 Rand, and he invested into a very traditional Liberty retirement annuity or whatever it was at the time. And when he matured that policy, in other words, he cashed it out, he didn't ever add any more money to it. He cashed it out about 35 years later.
Okay.
That 2,000 Rand was 2.1 million Rand.
Wow.
And now it wasn't huge returns. That was no fancy Bitcoins or magic. It was just being invested and getting, I think, 11% a year on average over the 30 years. And that's the power of compound interest.
Yeah.
Okay.
You guys have all done science and maths and things like that. So
Unfortunately.
go back and look at compound interest. It's
Yes.
the
Yeah.
eighth wonder of the world, I think is what Einstein called it.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay. So then,
Truly is.
so would you recommend a retirement annuity?
Look-
Specifically for retirement. Again, it is a long term, like
Definitely.
very long term.
Mhm.
Look, in South Africa, and this is, it's not difficult, but one must just, again, you need to understand what your long-term objectives are.
Mm-hmm.
If you think you're going to be remaining in this country, and these days it's a question I have to ask almost every client because so many people have left our country or are planning on.
Mm.
Yeah.
If you are thinking of leaving the country, a retirement annuity is not an appropriate vehicle.
Yeah.
Okay.
True.
It's inflexible if you're going to move to another country.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to be staying here, that retirement annuity is wonderful because it is hugely tax deductible. So
Yeah.
from that point of view, it's very, very tax friendly. It does have restrictions and you need to be familiar with those before you go into it. But the basic idea though is save. And
Yes.
whether it's an RA or whether it's a unit trust or a savings account, just put your money away and let it grow.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can always decide on. Everybody's going to have a slightly different plan, but just you need to make sure that you're saving something
Okay.
Perfect.
ASAP.
Yeah.
So follow all these tips or marry a rich man.
If he's prepared to share his money with you.
Just kidding.
So do you have any last words of encouragement or even a word of warning for us young people for the future?
Don't go and blast your money on new cars.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a big waste of money. And at the price of new cars these days, most people can't anyway.
Yeah.
But we see so many R1,000,000 cars and 800,000 Rand cars. I think the new Golf R that comes out next year is going to cost R1,000,000 Rand for Golf.
What?
Wow.
Can you believe that?
And I
But-
suppose like it loses value like by the day.
I can't tell you how many of my clients say, hey, my returns are only so-and-so. Or, you know, it's been difficult in the investment market over the last 2 years. Very, very difficult. And so a lot of people have been very unhappy with the returns.
Yeah.
So they're getting a few percent. But yet those same people are prepared to spend R1,000,000 Rand or 500,000 Rand in a car. And 2 years later, they'll sell the same car for 40 to 50% less.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm.
So don't fall into that trap. It's not really worthwhile. You only really have a new car smell for a few days, a few months if you're lucky, and then it's just a car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So don't waste your money in a car. Get a good second-hand car. Medical aid is very important.
Okay.
Think about things like income protection if you're working. In other words, if you become disabled, it's a product that will pay your salary if you're disabled.
Mhm.
Where does that fit in? Like,
That's part of what it's an insurance policy.
so is that like part of your life insurance?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. So you've got your retirement planning and then you got your risk planning. So
Okay.
risk planning is death cover, life cover.
Mhm.
Okay, you die.
Definitely.
Or disability cover. And disability cover is income protection or lump sum disability. And then the product, other one is called severe illness cover. In other
Okay.
words, if you're diagnosed with like a cancer or heart attack or have a stroke, then we pay you a set amount of money depending on what you're diagnosed with.
Okay.
And at your guys' age right now, life cover is probably not that important,
Mm-hmm.
but certainly income protection as you start to work,
Yeah.
dreaded disease cover, very important, medical aid, very, very, very important, and of course, retirement
Retirement.
savings, yeah,
Okay.
to get cracking on that, yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much, Simon,
Of
for
course.
Yeah, thank
joining
you.
us.
You're welcome.
And thank you for opening up your home as our studio.
Anytime.
Good.
Awesome. Well,
I
it
think
was
that's
nice having our number one fan on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Cool. Look forward to it.
Yeah. Thank you to everyone for listening to this episode, and we hope that you learned so much.
So much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.